We are coming live from Doola HQ. Thank you, Evan, for tuning in. We're back with another live. This is live. This is unscripted. We have folks tuning in from all over the world, and whatever platform you're tuning in from, you can ask me any question here. I always start off with the most common questions that came in from the previous week. So we're going to jump right in. No surprise here. Well, I say no surprise. The most common question that came in last week, we're going to start with number one. I actually did a full deep dive on this, but the question was, are you actually living in your office? The answer is yes. Now, this is a special day because it's hard to predict the future, but for a quick recap for folks who weren't watching last week, we actually started this challenge a little over 20 days ago. And the idea was I'm going to live in the office until we form 1,000 LLCs. Now, I'll be real with everyone. When we started the challenge, in my head, the math I did, and this is what I was projecting for, was 5 to 8 weeks in the office. So I was thinking, depending on what happens in terms of formation volume, we would do about 125 to 250 LLCs per week, which would take me to 5 to 8 weeks in the office. So I started back on June 11th, and the count was at 0, moved into the office. What is gearing up to be a momentous day tomorrow is we are currently at 933. Mental math checks out. We have 67 LLCs to go. So tomorrow, we are very much looking or gearing up for hitting 1,000 in 24 days, which is pretty cool, or in 23 full days, because technically the count would go through today. So yes, I am living in the office. It's gone faster than I thought it would. And the other thing here, which is cool, is sometimes I really think the universe saw the challenge was happening and decided, hey, I'm going to throw some extra LLCs this way, because this has been the fastest, and I'm manifesting, but I think this will be just the flow in terms of LLCs. This will be the fastest stretch we've ever done 1,000 LLCs. And this wasn't planned, of course, because we decided to start the challenge, but sometimes I do think that if you fully dive in or immerse yourself into a challenge, the universe can stand on its head or actually just start to help out. That might be a bit wooey. Again, there's no actual connection here. Although I will say, part of the goal here, and this actually could be what's happening, it's hard to actually measure, is by doing the challenge, you actually are, here's my analogy. Actually, let me use an analogy here. You're increasing your surface area for getting lucky. Or in this case, you're increasing the surface area for someone to hear about your company, in this case, Doola, and start a business with you. So let's use the analogy of getting struck by lightning. The odds of getting struck by lightning are incredibly low. 0.00000, add 15 more 1%. I think it's actually more likely you slip in the shower and injure yourself than getting bitten by a shark or struck by lightning. It's incredibly low odds. So the odds are low. But if I decided one day to go outside and have a metal pole taped to my head, or I'm holding a 20-foot metal pole, the odds are still incredibly low. But they go from 0.00001 to maybe 0.0001. So the odds are still low, but by an order of magnitude, you've increased the odds of you getting struck by lightning. So take that same analogy and put yourself out there, or build in public, or do a challenge like this. What I've done, and this is where, again, it's hard to measure, but you're increasing the odds or the likelihood that you get struck by lightning, or in this case, someone starts an LLC with Doola. So again, it's very hard to measure because you don't know how it impacts someone seeing the challenge in the back of their head for the last 2 years. They've been thinking, should I start a business? We've actually seen some of that feedback come in. So I'm saying maybe the universe decided to help, but I also do think that the more you can put yourself out there and create these surface areas for people to even learn about your business, it can increase the likelihood that more people start businesses. So we are gearing up again to hit 1,000 tomorrow, which is very exciting. And yes, I am actually living in the office. If you want to follow along, you can actually see we've been posting daily shorts on social, across all social. We've been doing this pretty much each day of the challenge. So you can actually check that out here. LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. There's also long form videos on YouTube with a full recap for the week as well. So you can actually watch along. The goal is you can actually see behind the scenes what it's like building here, Doola HQ in New York City. So that was the most common question that came in. Had to do a recap there. And again, you can check it out on social. You can watch the full recaps about the living in the office until 1,000 LLCs challenge. Okay, now the next question that came in. Let me actually just pull up the chat. Okay, and by the way, anyone can ask questions in the chat. I'm going through the most common questions. We collect them over the course of the previous week. You can ask questions live. I'll pull them up here. So fire ahead, go ahead, ask questions. The next question that came up, and I'm going to pop this on the screen, which is a very good question, which candidly, I guess we don't internally think about much because we're just building it. But for someone from the outside in, this might be very interesting, especially if you're a business owner, is how do you run Doola? So from the outside in, you can see the LLC factory. We're forming LLCs. You can go to our website. You can see, okay, I'm a doer. Doola is for doers. I can get started. But how's the sausage made? Or if Doola in the office, someone came up with this nickname, shout out Mario, the LLC factory. What happens inside the LLC factory? Now, one of my favorite quotes is from James Clear, this book, Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. My favorite story or visual that hammered this home is take the Olympics. Every Olympian has the same goal. What is the goal? Simple. It's to win gold. I don't know many Olympians who said my goal is to win silver, because if you're shooting for that, why not shoot for the gold? So every Olympian has the goal to get gold. But why doesn't everyone get it? Yes, there is some component of luck, but under the day, it comes down to your systems. And I'll use maybe the most decorated Olympian of all time, Michael Phelps. A lot of people say, yes, he had the physique, he had the genetics, oversized lungs. He was huge. He had the perfect build. So yes, he had maybe this set of genetics which others didn't have. But not many people know that Michael Phelps, in the build-up to Beijing in 2008, where he won 8 golds, he practiced 7 days a week for 7 years. And his math was simple. There's 2 weekend days. So over the course of a year, 2 times 52 is 104. Over the course of 7 years, that's 7 times 104, which is 728. He can just out-practice, and those extra days will compound versus someone else who's going to take off the weekend. So for him, he said, yeah, it was 7 days a week for 7 years. Look what happened. So again, yes, he had the genetics. Yes, he had the build, but his systems, he had a coach. He had repetitions. He had this philosophy of put the videotape on, where he visualized to such an extreme way his entire pre-race routine. So by the time he got on the block in Beijing, victory was already there. He not only visualized it, but he practiced it day after day after day. So again, Olympians have the same goals, but those who ultimately end up winning, they just have better systems that they can sustain for a longer amount of time. And I do believe the harder you work, the luckier you get as well. So with that preface, I'm actually going to give a behind the scenes look at how we run Doola, and I'm going to actually pull up and share my screen for our company Notion space. This is the Doola operating system. So I've actually never shared this before publicly in this type of setting. I'm going to share it. I want to give everyone a very real behind the scenes view of exactly how things are structured here. So I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to open up and share Notion. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to share an example or walkthrough of how everything ties together as well. So again, this was a question that came in, is just how are things run? I want to go through that. If there are additional questions, you can obviously pop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer. So let me start things off with an overview to the Doola operating system. And let's go side by side here. So the very first thing, I'm going to read these quotes. I have the quote pinned to the top. This is also heavily inspired by this incredible book I would recommend called Traction by Gino Wickman. So we very much inspired, full credit to Gino Wickman, the book Traction, took this concept of this entrepreneurial ecosystem or entrepreneurial operating system, but we applied it to Doola because every company is different. So we called it the Doola operating system. Now, with that, I'll start with the top. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Then I'm going to read a quote here. George Perellis was the defensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's an American football team, not the sport where you kick the ball, the one where you have the pigskin and you throw it, for the global audience there. George Perellis was the defensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers during their heyday in the 1970s. He said, We made every decision like we were going to the Super Bowl, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl 4 times. That is what every team needs to do. You should make all your decisions as though you were going to your own Super Bowl, as though you were achieving your vision. I love that for many reasons. A lot of times people think the Super Bowl is just the final game that's in February, but for the greats, the great teams, the great individuals, every day, every practice, you can look at and hear Michael Jordan talk about practice, Tom Brady talk about practice. I'm using athletes here as an example, but they would treat those games and those practices the same way as the big game or the big Super Bowl. So the goal is, why can't companies do the same thing? Why can't you treat every week, every meeting like it is the Super Bowl and take that level of seriousness or clarity with regards to how you're treating the day in, day out versus the big events, the big launches. So, with that, we have here the doola operating system. I'm not going to go through everything, but just so you can get a sneak peek, the way it works is there's a start here section where we give an overview of what is the doola operating system, then key terms, the same way NFL teams have shared plays in a playbook. There's a shared language here. And then there's a process for how this all runs together. Then there's a ton of different reference documents, which you can see cover many parts of the company, everything from the vision to who's accountable for what, our 10-year targets, our 3-year targets, our 1-year targets, issues we're facing, the way we run meetings, issues that are coming up in the future, and then processes too. So this is truly, it's a never-ending process. But the point here again is that you have a process in place. You actually have a system. Your goal isn't just to magically grow. It's, hey, this is our goal, is to grow. And this is how week in, week out, we're going to execute as a company to get there. So this is the equivalent of Michael Phelps practice. This is how, this is us swimming laps. This is us actually running the company. So let me actually come in here. I'm going to give a teaser, and I'm going to go into this explain like I'm 5 doc on what is the OS. Now, to start here again, strongly recommend even this visual here, full credit to the book Traction. Actually write it down. If you're an entrepreneur and you haven't read this book, I strongly recommend it. And the whole thesis or idea here is, if you could get all the people in an organization rowing in the same direction, you could dominate any industry in any market against any competition at any time. So that's the goal. Is you don't need a massive company in terms of people or money. If you have a small focused group of people, they can beat and crush armies. And I'll use the example armies. One of my favorite examples of this is, you might have heard the story of the 300 Spartans against this massive Persian army. 300 of these warriors, they actually held off tens of thousands, if not millions of, at the time, the greatest armed force that had ever been assembled. How? Because they were rowing in the same direction. They trained and they actually held off this massive army. So I'm using that army's term figuratively, or I guess literally there. But the point is, as a company, you're probably going against way bigger, more funded companies with more people. If you can be focused and dialed in, you can actually win. It's not about the number of people you have. It's how focused can you be on solving one problem. So with that, the Dual OS is broken into 6 components: people, vision, data, process, traction, and issues. Now I'm going to scroll down a bit here, but each of these components covers a different thing. Vision is where you're going. My favorite visual for this is if you have a ship at sea, which doesn't have a rudder, it just could just go in circles. So yes, technically you're moving, but are you moving in the right direction? So you need to actually have some North Star for where you're heading. Then there's people. A team is naturally made up of people, whether it's a sports team or individuals. Do you have the right people in the right seats? Then there's data. You can't just magically hope you're getting in the right direction. Are you actually tracking and seeing along the way, are we heading to our goal? There's then issues. Companies are issues. I actually think a company is just something that's been put together by people to solve a problem and do it well. Companies solve problems. So there's always issues. The best teams can actually find issues and weekly knock them out, or say, hey, now's not the right time to solve that issue. Then there's processes. This to me is the meat of systems. What are actual processes week in, week out? And then there's, the book calls this traction, but this is more the execution. Like strategy is cheap or ideas are cheap. The execution is where the LLCs are made or the money is made. That's where you have to actually take these ideas and execute on them. So the way it works, and just as a visual here, is you start off with having your vision, and then you back that into 3 years, so you know how you can actually get there, because the vision is this big, hairy, audacious goal. Then you have your 1-year plan, so you know exactly in 12 years where you'd like to head. Then quarterly goals or quarterly rocks, and then you have your weekly execution system. So as a summary, that's how everything ties together, and there's different cadences you can see here of within each time frame. There's a different question, and then there's a cadence you review on. So for example, the vision is, where are we going long term? You don't refresh that daily. That's too much thrash, but each year you should look at that. Same for the 3-year picture. You look at that annually too. Your 1-year plan, you can check in each quarter to how you're getting there. And then each quarter, we have a quarterly review where we can dictate what's coming next quarter. And then weekly, What are we doing every week to ensure that we're not falling behind and we're not picking our heads up 90 days from now and saying, holy crap, we could have course corrected earlier on. So with that, we then have many other documents in this operating system. But I wanted to give a little sneak peek here of, again, this is the call it the magic behind the LLC factory. I started off by sharing we're about to do 1,000 LLCs in a little over 20 days. Doesn't happen by magic. What's actually happening is we have these systems behind the scenes for how we plan, where we're heading, and then how we execute week over week too. So I strongly recommend if any entrepreneur out there is in their business thinking, we're doing a lot of work, but it feels like we're not heading in the right direction, or it's work, but we're not seeing the results. Two things. One, sometimes things do take time, but the bigger point here I'd like to say is that having some system can actually help a ton, which ties everything from the vision to the day to day. And I think, especially for founders out there listening, one of the hard things is you might feel like you're repeating yourself over and over again, and you will have to. One of my favorite lines is, when you get tired of saying it, that's when people start listening. Anything in life. So you're going to have to be like a crank up toy, which you open up and says the same thing. You're going to have to repeat these quotes and maxims and the company vision over and over and over again. But when you get tired of saying it, that's when people will listen. So what's really helpful about having some documented system here is that folks on the team can actually go and read, and you don't have to explain yourself as many times. So this did take time. I actually got, there was actually a weekend where I just said, I read this, I read the book and I said, screw it, I'm just going to do this all. So I spent a full weekend. I did full days and I cranked it all out. So it is doable. Like if you really want to just sit down for a weekend, 2 full days, you can get it done, no distractions, and you can document everything for your business. Then it takes time to obviously roll out with the company too, but it is worth it. It's worth every second in terms of the alignment you can get, the clarity you can get, and having it documented so that as you scale, people can come in, easily read it, and understand exactly how things operate at your company. Okay, so that's a little sneak preview there. By the way, if you do have any questions, I'm gonna quickly just flag this here. If you found that little sneak peek preview, I wouldn't even call that a hack, helpful. Something which I do is each week I have a newsletter which goes out called the 2-Minute Business Hack, where I share an actual tactical learning or piece of information that I found building Doola that can be helpful for your business. So the operating system is one example here, but there's many other, I call them hacks. Everyone wants shortcuts. And I think there certainly can be shortcuts or things which make things easier, which you should take advantage of. So I'll give you one hack now. This isn't actually even one which has been published yet, but during the day, you might be working a lot. So you might actually not hydrate, which is crazy because your brain is consumes a lot of water in your body. So a hack I have is I keep a mega water bottle. It's right here on my desk here, and I keep another right on the main desk over there. And this way I don't forget to drink water. So it's just literally sitting right here. Sitting right there. And without even thinking, you go through a full day. I have at least one of these, maybe even more. So I share hacks like that. There's other hacks for how to have more energy on sales calls. Actually, Michael Phelps' routine, that's one of the hacks in terms of the power of visualization. So you can check out the newsletter here. Once a week, no fluff, share that as well. And things like the Doola OS, things like staying hydrated, those are things that I want to help share. Again, I've learned these things and I'm always curious if others have hacks too. So I read and respond to every email I get. You can sign up there. You can shoot me a note. Okay, we got a couple comments coming in. Let me pull these on the screen here. Okay, we got a comment from Yash. Hello, Arjun. A big shout out to you and the Doola team. You have been making things a lot easier for international entrepreneurs for company formation. I've been referring Doola to many of my friends. Yash, thank you so much. This is one of the most special things is when you have something which people use and love enough to actually go out and share it with others. Because if you think about it, anytime you've shared something in the past, you're putting your neck out there by sharing. It's your reputation. Because if you share it and it doesn't go well, people are funny. They don't actually go to the company to complain. They go to you. Hey, why did you tell me to go use this thing? Not irrational. I think, again, they used it because they trusted you. It's your social capital. So Yash, huge thank you. These are really kind words. And I actually will quickly plug here for anyone listening. we want to work with people who know entrepreneurs, and we want to make it worth your while. So I will flag here. We have one of the most lucrative referral programs in the game. And when I say in the game, you can fact check me on this if you think there's a more lucrative one. Some might say, hey, why do you do this? But what I'll say is that we offer up to $1,500 per referral. So literally all you have to do is introduce someone to Doola. You can earn up to $1,500 for every founder you refer. And the reason we do this is we really value people taking the time out of their day to introduce someone to us. Now, you can, again, you can watch this page here or just head to doola.com. You'll see on the top, there's this partner with us. You can watch this video. You can fully go through our entire partner program. But if you out there are listening and you know entrepreneurs, you can quite literally introduce them to my email. Again, we're very hands-on here. You can send them to our website. We'll create a tracking link for you. You can introduce them to me. We'll give you credit. But you can earn up to $1,500 per referral. Depending on the plan they purchase, it starts at $150 all the way up to $1,500, just simply for saying, hey, you should check out Doola. So Yash, I really do appreciate it. If anyone listening, you can scan this QR code on the top left here. And that is where you can actually, this QR code right here, that's where you can scan and check out partner with us. If you'd like to partner with us, if you work with entrepreneurs, maybe you just create content, or maybe you're just well connected. Maybe you're networking and your friends who are doing consulting need an LLC. In any of those cases, you can actually earn very meaningful money. One of these referrals could pay for your vacation to France. Actually, anywhere in the world, probably for $1,500. So check out Partner with Us if you are very interested in helping founders start their dream business. Okay, we got a comment here from Key Strikes. Hello, Key Strikes. How is it going? Let me know if you have any questions there as well. Now, the last thing I want to cover for today, and again, if folks have questions, you can pop them in the chat. I'm going to pull up another question. Let me just scroll through here. We had a lot of questions that come in. In the interest of time, I want to actually, let's go back to the basics. This question, there's so much confusion, which comes from which state should I actually file my company in? So let me give you an answer here. And I do like lawyers. Lawyers actually can help you in certain situations. And sometimes the most expensive mistake you can make is choosing a cheap lawyer. So if there truly are irreversible decisions and big decisions, you should sanity check, have a great legal counsel on your side, whether it's people issues or something for the company. But oftentimes, lawyers will tell you the 11 things you shouldn't do versus the one thing you should do. So again, not a knock on lawyers. You should have great legal counsel. But let me just actually tell you my answer here for what state you should file your company in. And I like decision trees, so I'll make this very simple. If you live in the US, a lot of people think, and I'll do a little trivia here, what state should you form in? Now, a lot of people, their first answer, be honest with yourself, is Delaware. That's actually not the right answer. I'll tell you why. Delaware is the most popular state in the US for LLC formation. There are more LLCs in Delaware than there are people in Delaware. But if you live in the US and you form an LLC in Delaware, let's say you live in New York, what you've done is you've actually formed an LLC in the state you don't live in. But technically, you do business in the state you live in. Do business defined as you're physically there. You have an office. Even if you're working from home, you're technically sending emails. That counts as doing work. So you technically have to file for a foreign qualification to register your Delaware LLC to now do business in New York. So what you've done out the gate is, to do that, you need to get a registered agent in New York and pay the annual fees. So you've effectively doubled your annual fees from the get-go. Now, again, a lot of people don't realize that you should just typically in the US form in the state you live in because you're doing business there. So that would be my rec, is if you're in the US, you should oftentimes form the LLC in the state you live in because you don't want to double your fees out the gate in terms of state fees and your registered agent. So that's the US side. To keep it very simple for non-US residents, the best state to form in is, you can choose any state. So the world is your oyster. You can actually choose any of the 50 states. Now, I said I'd give you an actual answer. My recommendation for non-US residents is not Delaware. Thought I might say Delaware, it's not. Can you guess what it is? It is. This is actually the most popular state for non-US founders to form an LLC. Take 3 seconds to guess. It's Wyoming. Why Wyoming? Couple of things. One, don't sleep on Wyoming. The original LLC was actually invented or created in Wyoming. Number two, people call Wyoming the Swiss Alps of the Rockies. Don't sleep on Wyoming. It has prestige. Number three is Wyoming is very forward-thinking in terms of legislation. They were actually one of the first states to offer the ability for DAO LLCs to register as an LLC. And then I'll give you a bonus one, number 4. Wyoming's actually cheaper than Delaware. The annual fees in Wyoming, a little over $60 versus in Delaware, $300 per year. So again, when you're starting a business, every dollar counts. If you can get all the benefits of limited liability protection, the ability to get an EIN, the ability to have the social proof of saying I am a US business, and you can save some money and you get the social proof of Wyoming, which is also great for digital online businesses or e-commerce businesses like Shopify and Amazon. Wyoming is a fantastic choice. So that's my recommendation. Again, I'll redraw the tree just to keep it simple. If US, state you live in. If non-US, I'd recommend Wyoming. Like, that's simple. Now, if you obviously have, and this is the final plug I'll make here, if you obviously want to just double check this based on your personal situation, because there might be tons of conflicting information out there. We had a customer once tell me there's migraine-inducing information because Reddit says one thing, Google says one thing, your friend in the group chat says another thing. So if you have any questions, you can literally schedule a free demo with a human on the doula team. This is not AI avatars or agents. You can go test. These are actual humans. Sometimes people have asked, are you AI? They're not. These are actual humans. These are humans who have done thousands at this point, thousands of calls and consultations with people in your exact position. And there's nothing wrong with being a bit confused or wanting to just double check before you start. So you can actually just scan right here, and in less than 5 minutes, you can schedule a call with a person on our team. We have round-the-clock coverage globally. We have customers in over 175 countries. You can schedule a call and just walk through your situation. Hey, I heard Arjun say Wyoming. Should I do Wyoming? Or I live in the US here, but I have an office in this state. Okay, we should probably do a foreign qualification. Or I have a Shopify and Amazon business. Do you help with taxes or bookkeeping for that? Whatever your questions are, you shouldn't feel like just because you don't know the answer, you aren't equipped to start. No one really knows these things. I didn't know these things. I didn't know what an LLC was a little over 5 years ago. Like, that's candid. So the point here is just because you don't know doesn't mean you can't do. No one knew. Everyone learned along the way. The most important thing is you actually find someone you can trust to help you, whether it's your back office or different parts of the stack, so you can actually get started on your journey. So once again, no strings attached to you. It's actually a free demo. We don't ask for a credit card. We don't say, hey, if you don't show up, we're going to fine you. No. We obviously want you to show up. We want to be respectful of each other's time. So do this if you're serious. But even if you're not completely sure of your idea, you can still schedule here to talk through and actually realize that, hey, I don't need to know business formation and business banking and bookkeeping and taxes to actually start my dream business. Someone like Doula can help. And even if you do this formation, you decide not to work with us, that's okay. Our goal is we at least provided some education. So it really is no strings attached. Our hope, though, is you do the consult and you realize, okay, they provided great value. They don't only help with the formation, they can help with the full stack as well. So again, once again, you can check this out. You can schedule a free demo, no strings attached. We're happy to answer any questions you might have on entity formation. Okay, last couple questions coming in from Key Strikes. Can we register companies related to crypto? Yes, you can. Now, what I will say is you can register an LLC for a company doing crypto. We can support LLC formation in any state in the US. We actually work with companies that are maybe investing in crypto and they want the LLC for the anonymity of those investments, or they have a separate bank account to deposit or have USD that they then transfer for investments and then transfer crypto back to USD, etc. Whatever your use case is, you can start an LLC for crypto. We support you. The thing we cannot guarantee, and this goes for actually all industries, but certain banks might not support crypto, or if your main business focus is crypto, they might not be able to work with you. That's fully on the bank side, but that's one thing I like to share candidly up front is we cannot control that bank decision to run their KYC or know your customer process and open an account for you. We can't control that. That being said, we do have relationships with banks too. So just given what industry you're in, I would actually proactively, as a tip, scope out which bank you might want to use and just do a check to see if they can support you given your industry. So Key Strikes, in terms of crypto, do a little double check and just make sure, hey, this is, if I need a business bank account, maybe you don't. Maybe you just want the LLC for anonymity and for a business structure deals. If that's the case, and then you might just have your crypto wallet, that could work. But again, I would always check with your ultimate financial provider or the business bank on specifically if they can support your industry type. So I'll give you some examples. This is outside of crypto. Most banks can't support cannabis businesses, adult entertainment, businesses that are involved in money transmission, gambling. These are typically the sectors where banks are actually not supportive of banking those types of customers. There are certain banks, though, that can. So this is where you should, again, do your research. I just listed out some of the most common restricted categories when it comes to business banking. Great question. Thank you for asking. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions that came in. Okay, no new questions coming in live. So with that, I'm very excited. Tomorrow's going to be a momentous day. We passed 1,000. And again, the final thing I'll say is, actually, I won't say it. I'm going to share this story with folks here. A lot of people, and this will be your, not your Monday motivation, but this will be your Tuesday motivation here. A lot of people think that it might be too late for them to actually start a business. And what I'm going to say to you there is, this is one of my favorite stories. I think about this a lot. And this is what I call a limiting belief breaker. So here it is. Let me actually make this a tiny bit bigger here. The best time, let me make this a tiny bit smaller. There we go. Okay. So on the left here, just kidding. Let's go full screen. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. The best time to start your dream business was yesterday. The second best time is today. It doesn't matter how old you are. Don't believe me? Eric Yuan started Zoom at 41. Robert Noyce started Intel at 41. Donald Fisher started Gap at 40. Rodney Chase started Zipcar at 42. Lee Goodwin started Crocs at... Lee Goodwin started Geico at 50. Ray Kroc started McDonald's at 52. Sam Walton started Walmart at 44. David Bazuski started Roblox at 41. Reid Hoffman started LinkedIn at 35. Toni Morrison wrote her first novel at 40. Henry Ford created the Model T car at 45. Harlan David Sanders started KFC at 62. Ellen Latham started Orange Theory at 54. Michael Bloomberg started Bloomberg at 39. Vera Wang entered the fashion industry at 40. Samuel L. Jackson got his first major role at 43. Martha Stewart published her first cookbook at 41. Ariana Huffington started the Huffington Post at 55. Steve Carell landed his hit role as Michael Scott at 42. So what's the takeaway there? The takeaway is, it's widely believed that most successful entrepreneurs are young. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Mark Zuckerberg were only in their early 20s when they launched what would become world-changing companies. Do these famous cases reflect a generalizable pattern? Research shows that among the top 0.1% of startups, based on their growth in the first 5 years, the founders started their companies on average when they were 45 years old. Remember, it is never too late to turn your dream idea into your dream business. So I'll say that one more time. There is this limiting belief or thought that to start a company, you have to be young and drop out of college, like Zuckerberg's, like Gates, and these are the stories, but it's a limiting belief because the data shows the top startups were started by people who are much older. And in terms of growth, those companies actually grew faster too. So I think these limiting beliefs can be huge things which hold people back. I love this because the data just shows that's not the case. So that's the data. The other thing I'll show you is, if that doesn't get you fired up, here's a great clip from Joe Rogan. The clip goes, I'll read it out loud. God, I wish I started when I was younger. And he goes, yeah, but you didn't. So shut the bleep up and let's get going. That's your call to action. Be a doer. Again, you don't even have to go start the company, or it could be the book you've been putting off or that thing on your chore list. Take some action today. That's my final call to arms. And we'll see you next week in the next live. Please, again, feel free to share any comments, any questions, any feedback. We'll see you next Tuesday. And we're so close to 1,000 LLCs.